Love Lessons, Series Finale, Episode 6, You Were the Girl. You were the girl. The cafe was quiet at this hour, dimly lit with golden lamplight and the occasional clink of porcelain against saucers. A private room in the back had been reserved. Amara arrived first. She wore a soft cream blouse and a fitted coat that framed her baby bump, her hair pinned up with loose curls trailing along her cheeks. She looked calm, composed, but inside her stomach churned. Not from the pregnancy, but from the weight of Jamin's request. "My mother wants to meet you. She thinks you may have crossed paths before." That's all he said. The door opened. Amara stood as Mrs. Sue entered. There was a pause, long enough for time to stretch. Mrs. Sue halted, taking Amara in with a gaze that didn't just observe, it remembered. Her eyes moved slowly, the shape of her face, the way she held herself, the softness in her expression. She pressed a hand to her chest. "It's you," she whispered. Amara blinked. "I'm sorry?" Mrs. Sue stepped closer, her breath catching. Outside the symposium, it was raining, the night I was robbed. Her voice trembled. "You were the girl who helped me. You stayed until the officer came." Amara's lips parted in surprise. "You were the woman in the ivory coat. I remember." Mrs. Sue sat gently. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for her tea. "I never forgot you. You were so young, so brave. You insisted on staying with me even when they told you not to. You spoke to me in Korean. I remember thinking, what kind of child speaks with such care?" "I was 15, Amara said, her voice quiet. "It was my first international conference. I couldn't just leave you there." Mrs. Sue smiled, her eyes now glistening. "And yet, you did more for me that night than people 3 times your age." Silence swirled around them, warm and tender. Jamin stood by the door, unseen until that moment. He hadn't wanted to interrupt. He watched as his mother and Amara, separated by time and chance, now saw each other clearly. Amara glanced down, unsure. "I never thought we'd meet again." Mrs. Sue leaned in. "Neither did I, but I believe we were meant to." Jamin entered then, his hand brushing Amara's back. "You okay?" She nodded. Mrs. Sue looked between them, her heart swelling. "You helped me once," she said, "and now it seems you've helped my son, when he needed it most." Tears threatened, but Amara held them back. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," she replied. Mrs. Sue reached across the table and took her hand. "You did. You gave him peace. You brought him back to us." And for a moment, no words were needed. The past, the pain, and the purpose of their crossing paths again. All of it sat unspoken between them like a sacred thread. A month after Do Hwan's death, Mateo hadn't slept through the night in weeks. Not since the accident, not since the sound of screeching tires and shattering glass became louder than his own thoughts. He kept replaying it over and over, Do Hwan stepping into that intersection instead of staying safe inside the cafe. That one deviation, that one moment that led to death. And Mateo had been the one who stopped him. "You don't need to see her," he had told him that day. "She'll just mess with your head again." So Do Hwan listened. He turned away from Amara and into the street. Mateo couldn't bear the weight of it, not fully, so he shifted the blame, let it coil itself around someone else's name. Amara. She was the one who texted, who lured him out, who didn't leave him the hell alone. If she hadn't reached out, if she hadn't been so damn persistent, he would still be alive. Now Do Hwan was gone, and Mateo had unraveled. He'd gone AWOL from the base, ignored the final days of his enlistment like they were background noise. His superiors had tried to be understanding at first. Do Hwan was his best friend. Everyone knew how close they were, but even the military had its limits. There were only so many extensions they'd grant before the word desertion came into play. Mateo didn't care. Instead, he drifted, haunted the hospital corridors until the staff recognized his silhouette, played the grieving friend for Do Hwan's parents when all he really wanted to do was scream, "I loved him. He loved me. And I let him die." His days became surveillance runs, following Amara from a distance, watching her laugh, watching her live, watching her thrive. And it sickened him. She looked carefree, comfortable, radiant even, with that swollen belly like a badge of survival. Mateo didn't know if the man always with her was a fiancé or just another rich replacement. Either way, he looked like he belonged. Jamin. That was his name. There were evenings Mateo followed them both from Lamar's class to the cafe, watching Amara sit with that well-dressed older woman, watching her smile like she hadn't left Do Hwan, shattered on the inside just months before he died. To Mateo, it all looked like a performance. Carefully staged, beautifully lit, one in which Do Hwan had been edited out of the frame completely. And what kind of woman did that? A liar, an opportunist, a woman who claimed to love and moved on as though nothing had happened. Mateo had made up his mind. Today would be the day he'd ask her, not kindly, not gently. Today he would confront her, face to face. No running, no confusion, no excuses. Mateo had been standing across the street for almost an hour, leaning against the side of a shuttered bakery like he belonged there. The morning sun climbed higher, but his hoodie stayed pulled low, casting shadow over his eyes. He'd memorized her routines. Cafe at 10. Usually tea, sometimes pastries. Always with the older woman, Jamin's mother. There she was. Amara. Laughing at something, Mrs. Su said, her hand pressed over her belly. Mateo's jaw flexed. There was something blasphemous about that gesture. About the comfort she carried now. About the way her laughter reached the edge of the sidewalk, like she hadn't left blood behind her. She was showing more now. Her belly had grown. Her pace had slowed, but she was still living. He watched as she stood, nodded politely to Mrs. Su, and walked toward the back of the cafe, the narrow side street where the restrooms were tucked away. The moment her silhouette disappeared around the corner, Mateo straightened. This was it. The alleys here were quiet, meant for deliveries and garbage bins. The noise of the city always dulled just enough to make things feel distant, detached. The kind of place no one looked twice into. He crossed the street slowly, deliberately. The closer he got, the more his breath seemed to narrow, like he was breathing through a keyhole, like the weight in his chest would crack open if he didn't move faster. She killed him. That was the only thing that repeated now, not as a whisper, but a drumbeat. She killed him and got to keep everything. The corner loomed. Mateo didn't hesitate. He turned, stepped into the alley, and spotted her just as she exited the restroom. Their eyes met. Just for a second. Long enough for her to register something was wrong. Long enough for her hand to instinctively hover near her belly. She took a step. Mateo surged forward. No words. He closed the space between them like a shadow unfolding. He slammed her back into the alley wall, one hand flying to her wrist, pinning it above her head. His other hand clamped over her mouth before the first breath of protest could escape. "Shut up," he hissed, teeth grinding. "Shut up." Amara's eyes went wide. Her body stiffened beneath his weight. He leaned in, his breath uneven. His voice was low and trembling with rage. "I've been watching you, Amara." The voice was guttural, bitter, almost sing-song in its menace. Mateo's grip on her wrist tightened as he pressed her further into the wall, his body overshadowing hers completely. She tried to cry out, but his hand muffled everything. Her eyes darted, searching, pleading, for some shred of light, for movement, for help. But there was only him, and rage. His hand shot up higher, lifting her wrist until she had to rise onto her tiptoes, straining to relieve the pressure in her shoulder. The weight of the baby shifted upward too, pinching her lungs and ribs, making each breath sharp and shallow. Panic surged. He wasn't just some stranger. He knew her name. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he whispered, voice coiling in her ear. "But I guess to you, I am." Amara's eyes widened, blinking hard, trying to place the voice, the face, but it was obscured. Unkempt hair, sunken cheeks, weeks of unshaven grief worn like a costume. Her brain, muddled by adrenaline and oxygen-starved fear, refused to cooperate. And then he said it. "I have things I need to get off my chest, Amara." Her pulse roared in her ears. This man knows me. He shifted his stance, lowering her arm slightly, but not enough to let her go. Not enough for comfort, only to prolong the torment. Her body sagged from exhaustion and effort, but her mouth was still covered. Then her phone vibrated. Jamin's couple's bracelet, the one he gave her after Lamar's class. A silly, sweet gesture to let each other know they were thinking of one another, no matter the distance. Pressing the bracelet's centerpiece will send a light vibration or a glow. Sometimes, both. And now, it pulsed wildly, over and over. The man hadn't noticed yet. Her left hand was still free, pressed between their bodies, curled near her coat pocket. Carefully, she nudged her fingers into the fabric, toward the phone. The vibration stopped. Voicemail. Seconds later, the phone buzzed again. A call, and the man noticed her stance shift. "What did you say to me?" he snapped, finally removing his hand from her mouth. Amara gasped, taking in air like she'd been drowning. Do I know you?" she stammered, her voice fractured and small. "Say it again." Matteo barked. Her breath trembled. "Do I know you?" Something in the words broke him. He pulled back just enough so that she could see his eyes, glassy and bloodshot. "You don't remember me," he whispered. Wow. The mask of bitterness cracked and spilled into something more dangerous, more fragile. His lips curled into a humorless smile. "Is that how you want to do this, Amara?" he said, louder now. "You forgot me, forgot him, and now Do Juan is dead, and I guess I'm dead too, huh?" She froze. The breathing she'd been trying to keep steady gave out in a shocked exhale. "Matteo," her voice trembled. "You remember now," he said, almost laughing. "Good. Now you can answer me." Her body went cold. The pressure on her wrist hadn't lessened. Her belly had begun to ache from the tension. Baby stirred in protest, shifting weight against her ribs. I didn't know you felt," she began, voice fragmented. "No, you didn't know anything," Matteo spat. "You didn't know that calling him that night would change everything. You didn't know that the only reason he was out there, crossing that street, was because you couldn't leave him alone." Tears pooled in her eyes. "Please, if I've done something wrong—" "You killed him," Matteo said flatly. A scream rose in her throat, but never came out. Jamin, in his board meeting across town, looked down at his bracelet. Again it vibrated, then lit up. And this time, the light stayed on. The vibration pulsed in a way it never had before, a silent, constant alarm. Jamin stood. All presence of the boardroom disappeared. Something was wrong. A cold fear gripped Jamin as he left the meeting. His mind played worst-case scenarios, but one word kept hammering louder than the rest. Baby. He fumbled for his phone, dialing his mother's number. "Hi, Mom. Are you with Amara?" His mother's voice was calm. "No. She went to the restroom a while ago, probably taking her time." Jamin's stomach dropped. "She's not answering her phone either. Something doesn't feel right." He hung up before his mother could respond. Then his bracelet buzzed again. Constant, urgent. Something wasn't right. He called Amara. The call connected. On the other end, he heard the unmistakable rustle of fabric, and then a man's voice. "You forgot him," the voice hissed. Jamin froze. "Do Juan," Amara whispered. How could you say I've forgotten him? Look at you. You didn't even know it's me, the man snapped. Matteo! Matteo! Yamin's heart punched his ribs. Matteo? What the hell is he doing with her? Through the muffled chaos on the call, Yamin could only catch fragments. Amara's voice, strained. Matteo's, wild. You have your new boyfriend, your fancy apartment, playing house with your rich fiancé. When's the wedding? Yamin's chest tightened. He's pressing her. He's hurting her. Then Matteo's voice rose, breaking into a scream. You have everything, Amara, and I have nothing. A stranger nearby had started approaching them, but when Matteo drew a knife with terrifying ease, the man backed off, palms raised. But in the process, the stranger saw her face. Amara. Terror written across it. The man froze, then backed away. Matteo released her, just enough to feel in control again. She stumbled backward, gasping, hands raised defensively to create some kind of buffer between the two. What do you want from me, Matteo? She cried. I thought Do Juan was your friend. You, Matteo breathed, eyes wild. You always stood in the way. He waved the knife like it was weightless, combat-trained fingers making it dance between glints of sunlight and shadow. Amara was shaking. The knife. The rage. And now, people. A crowd had started forming at the alley's edge. Mrs. Sue emerged from the cafe, her face tightening in disapproval at the man speaking to Amara. But when she saw the knife, saw Amara's fear, her expression collapsed into panic. Whispers rose like a tide. Someone called the police. Matteo's voice racked with pain. What did I take from you? Amara asked softly. Her eyes filled with tears. You loved him, didn't you? She said. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. You really loved him. Matteo staggered, as if struck by a weighted object. Dropping to his knees, tears began to spill. I didn't get to say goodbye, he choked. I thought he'd pick me. I thought he'd come back. But he was gone, even before he left you. Amara's voice trembled. He broke up with me 7 months ago. He returned to base and returned to you, wholly, not halfway. He chose you, Matteo. And I let him go. Matteo was crying now, clutching her sleeve like a child, the knife still gripped in his other hand. From the alleyway, the crowd surged forward, murmuring. More people could now see she was pregnant. You walk around like he didn't matter, Matteo sobbed. Was it all a joke to you? No, she said softly. Her hand, shaking, found the top of his head. Matteo, she whispered. He was the first man who truly saw me, who taught me love. And maybe we wouldn't have lasted. But I honor what we had. I never tried to get in the way of you two. His forehead dropped against her belly. Her other hand trembled at her side, inches from his blade. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. He's gone, she whispered. But I won't forget him. I didn't play with his heart. When I saw he'd moved on, I stepped aside. Matteo sobbed harder, muttering something no one could hear, and then the alley turned silent, but for the weeping of a man completely undone. Matteo looked up at Amara. The knife was still in his hand, still hanging uselessly by his side. His eyes were glassy, red-rimmed, and burning. Why wouldn't you leave him alone? He rasped. His voice was raw, unraveling. For months you kept calling, texting. You never said anything other than you had to see him. You're a liar, Amara. You wanted him back. Just admit it. Amara's expression shifted. The sharpness in her face gave way to something softer, tired, even mournful. Matteo, she whispered, exasperated. Yes, I needed to speak to Do Juan, but that didn't mean I wanted him back, from whoever he was with, even if he was with no one at all. She sighed, sagging under the weight of adrenaline and emotion. What was so important that it couldn't be a text? Why had to be face to face? He demanded. It was all games, wasn't it? Mateo's voice was rising again when it happened. The baby kicked. Amara flinched slightly from the movement. Mateo saw it. His eyes darted down to her belly. "Oh, yeah," he muttered. "And now he gets to live a happy life with his child. You're pregnant with that man's baby." Venom laced his voice, bile rising with every word. But then Amara stilled. Something in his tone told her. Mateo didn't know. He didn't know who the father was. "Mateo," she said gently, eyes holding his. "Whose baby do you think this is?" She reached for his free hand, the one not holding the knife. With slow, deliberate care, she pried it away from her skirt and placed it over her belly. Another kick. Mateo flinched. His eyes widened, blinking rapidly, as if trying to dispel an impossible vision. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "No, no." "Mateo," she said quietly. "I was calling Do Juan to tell him I was pregnant, that's all. I just needed to talk, to figure out how to move forward with the baby between us. I didn't want him back. I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I thought he had a right to know." Mateo stood frozen in place. Disbelief tightened every muscle in his face. "You're lying," he choked out. "I'm not," Amara said. "His name is Do Juan Alexander Park. We're having a boy." Amara placed her hand over Mateo's, still resting against her belly. "I pray every day he takes after his daddy," she said, voice nearly breaking. "I feel him kicking. I feel him." Mateo sank to his knees like the weight of the world had just collapsed through his spine. His forehead pressed against her belly as fresh sobs torn from his throat. "I loved him," Amara whispered, tears falling freely now. "I loved how calm he was, how he could talk me down from panic without even raising his voice. I was lucky to love him, even luckier to carry this piece of him." She bent slightly, her hand gently stroking his curls like she might soothe a child. "I'm blessed to have this baby. I'm blessed to have a part of Do Juan still here. And he'll know about his dad, Mateo. I'll make sure of it. He'll know how much he was loved by both of us." The collapse. By now, the police and Jamin's driver were at the scene. Jamin was still on the line, clutching the phone like a lifeline, praying with each breath that the call wouldn't drop. His mother's sobs filled the background. She was terrified, not just for Amara, but for the baby. The Kwan family had already endured too much loss. She didn't know what Mateo was capable of, but she knew instability when she saw it. Whatever Jamin wanted, his mother prayed. "Please don't let this end poorly." The police, only feet away from Mateo, were frozen in their caution. He still held the knife. They couldn't risk provoking him, not when Amara was this close. Suddenly, Amara doubled over, grabbing a fistful of Mateo's hair. Pain, a contraction. Braxton Hicks. Maybe. Or maybe not. Panic rose in her chest, but she remembered her LeMay's training. Focus on your breath. Keep calm. Stay upright. Don't pass out. Inhale. Exhale. She groaned, and it caught Mateo's attention. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No, Mateo. No, I'm not," she gasped. "I think this is false labor, but I need to time it." Sweat was sliding down her temples. Her body was shutting down from stress. Another surge of pain hit her hard, making her cry out. "What do I do?" Mateo panicked. "What do I do? I won't hurt him. I won't hurt the baby," he pleaded toward her belly. "You've got to let me go, Mateo," she said, barely able to speak through the pain. "Let go. Let's end this." But another contraction crashed through her body. "Too soon. Too soon," Amara whimpered, to no one in particular. Her knees buckled. The crowd gasped. The police moved closer, shouting words she couldn't process. It was all noise now. Mateo lunged to catch her, but he forgot. He still held the knife. The blade was so sharp, so deadly, that it slipped between Amara's ribs and lung before either of them registered what had happened. A warm rush of crimson spread across Amara's right side. Her breath caught. Someone in the crowd screamed. The police surged forward, tackling Matteo to the ground. The knife clattered to the pavement. "I'm sorry," Matteo wailed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't." Amara sank. Her knees hit the ground. Breathing grew harder. Baby kicked again. Her hand fluttered weakly over her stomach. Jamin's driver shoved through the crowd, barking orders, lifting Amara like she weighed nothing. Emergency responders had already been waiting. They carried her away faster than the police could even finish restraining Matteo. Jamin could hear the chaos on the other end of the call. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. By the time Matteo was finally wrangled into the back of a police cruiser, his eyes were wild, haunted. He'd killed Dojuan. And now, maybe again. He couldn't bear the thought. As he screamed and sobbed, thrashing against the officers, it became clear. Matteo wouldn't make it to jail. He had to be taken to the psychiatric ward. Recovery. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, sterile and cold. Somewhere behind a curtain, a heart monitor beeped in steady rhythm. Amara drifted in and out of consciousness, her body heavy from painkillers, her chest wrapped tightly in gauze. The stabbing had narrowly missed her lung, the doctors said. A matter of inches. A miracle. She stirred, head rolling to the side. Jamin was there. His elbows rested on his knees, hands clasped between them like he was holding something precious, or trying to keep something from falling apart. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with worry, and a half-empty coffee sat untouched on the windowsill behind him. When her breath hitched slightly, his head jerked up. "Amara," he whispered, already rising from the chair. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Her throat was dry. The memory came rushing back in fragments. The knife, Matteo, the crowd, the blood. Her hand fluttered to her belly. "The baby," she croaked. Jamin reached her side in 2 steps, his voice low but urgent. "He's okay. He's okay. The baby's okay." Tears welled instantly in Amara's eyes. Her arms trembled as she tried to sit up. Jamin pressed his hands gently against her shoulders. "Don't. Just stay still. You're safe." "Where is he?" she asked. Jamin didn't answer immediately. His jaw flexed. "Matteo's on psychiatric hold. The doctors, they said he was catatonic when they brought him in. He kept saying he didn't mean to." Jamin cut himself off. "That doesn't matter. What matters is you. The baby. You made it." A sob racked Amara's chest. The pressure of it tore through her stitches, and she winced. "Breathe. In. Out," Jamin said, mirroring her inhale. "I'm right here." She reached for his hand, needed to feel something solid, something kind. Jamin took it, his fingers trembling as they laced with hers. "I thought I lost you," he said, his voice raw. "I've never been more scared in my life." "I didn't know he would," she began, but Jamin shook his head. "You don't have to explain. You never owed anyone your past. Not him. Not me." They sat in silence for a while, just the sound of machines and the soft whoosh of the IV drip. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she whispered. "You didn't," Jamin said gently. "You survived." His thumb brushed against her knuckles. The gesture was so tender, it made her want to cry again. But this time, not from fear, from relief. The visit from Mrs. Park. The next morning came soft and grey, the hospital room lit by the pale diffusion of clouded sunlight. Amara had been half-sitting in the bed, propped up with pillows, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. She hadn't spoken much since waking fully. The world still felt too loud, even in silence. There was a quiet knock on the door. Amara turned slowly. She expected a nurse. Maybe Jamin's return with food. Instead, the door creaked open, and Mrs. Park stepped inside. She wore a charcoal grey hanbok, muted and elegant. Her hair was swept into a low meticulous chignon. There was no softness in her posture, but her hands trembled around the purse she clutched at her waist. Amara's throat closed. Mrs. Park took one step into the room, then another. Her eyes swept over the machines, the monitors, the tray of untouched broth. Then finally, her gaze fell on Amara. "May I sit?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. Amara nodded, too stunned to speak. Mrs. Park crossed to the chair beside the bed and lowered herself onto it slowly, as if the act took decades. Her hands remained in her lap. She didn't look at Amara right away. Instead, she looked at the curve of her stomach. "You survived," she said. "Yes," Amara replied, just as quietly. "So did the baby." Mrs. Park nodded once. Silence swelled again, thick with the weight of unsaid things. After a long moment, she spoke. "I prayed you would." Amara's eyes widened. "You... what?" Mrs. Park's voice was flat. "I told myself I hated you, that it was your fault he was at that intersection, that if you'd just left him alone." She trailed off. Her hands flexed tightly around the purse. "But I've had time to think. Time, tears, and silence. And I know now, grief will make villains out of the innocent. It will feed you stories so you don't drown in guilt." Her voice cracked. "And I was drowning." Amara couldn't stop the tears from gathering. "I never wanted him to die. I loved him. I still do." Mrs. Park's eyes flicked up to meet hers. "Did he love you?" Amara swallowed. "Yes." A long breath left the older woman. Not quite a sigh, not relief, but maybe something near it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small folded square of pale blue fabric, a baby blanket. "This was Do Juan's," she said, "from when he was a baby. My mother made it. I kept it all these years, even when it turned yellow at the edges. I thought maybe one day he'd have someone to pass it down to." She held it out. Amara stared at it. "For him?" Mrs. Park said. "For the boy." With trembling hands, Amara took it. The blanket was soft, the kind of soft only time could make. "I'm sorry," Amara whispered. "I know," Mrs. Park replied. "So am I." They didn't say anything after that. They just sat in the quiet, with the memory of a ghost of a man they both loved, and a new life still waiting to be born. Practice run. Jimin gets the invite. Jamin had brought Amara her favorite coconut jelly and warm ginger tea. He knocked once before nudging the door open with his elbow, grinning when he saw her propped up in bed, flipping through a maternity pamphlet. "Is this the part where you pretend to be reading, but are really just thinking about grilled cheese?" he teased. Amara smirked. "I am reading. I'm learning about perineal massage." Jamin froze mid-step. "You know what? Maybe I don't need to know everything." "Coward." Amara grinned, setting the pamphlet aside. He handed her the tea and sat on the visitor's recliner, stretching his legs and letting out a dramatic sigh. "You good?" she asked. Jamin shrugged. "I'm mentally preparing myself for when your water breaks and I completely lose my shit." She laughed, taking a slow sip. "I was actually hoping we could talk about that." He perked up. "About me losing my shit? About you being in the room when I give birth?" His jaw dropped. "In the room?" Amara gave him a look. "Yes, where the birth happens. I thought I was just responsible for snacks and light car service duties. I didn't realize I was invited to the main event." "Too late," she said. "You've been upgraded to pit crew." Jamin ran both hands through his hair. "Okay. All right, sure. Yes. I mean, I've seen Grey's Anatomy. I've got this. You're not going to pass out, are you?" "Me?" he scoffed. "No, of course not. I'm as solid as they come." He paused. "Quick question, though. Is it normal to sweat this much just thinking about it?" Amara giggled. You don't have to do anything heroic, Jamin. Just hold my hand, maybe rub my back. Tell me I'm a warrior queen when I scream at the anesthesiologist. I can do that, he nodded. Affirmations, back rubs, emotional cheerleading. I'll even practice my serious voice for when the nurse asks if I'm the father. Amara's eyes softened. You've been here for me every day, Yamin. I trust you. He stopped fidgeting. His heart caught somewhere between pride and panic. Then I'll be there, he said quietly. Every step. Delivery room chaos. Game day. 36 hours later, Jamin was standing at the head of the hospital bed, wearing hospital-issued shoe covers, a disposable hairnet that made him look like a lunch lady, and an expression that screamed mild internal breakdown. All right, Dad, the nurse chirped. She's about 6 centimeters and holding steady. We're getting close. Jamin blinked. I'm not the dad. Amara groaned from the bed. He's close enough. Just let him stay. Yes, ma'am, the nurse said with a wink. Jamin leaned over Amara, dabbing sweat from her forehead with trembling hands. You're doing amazing. You're killing it. I mean, not killing like, you're strong. Like a warrior queen. You got this. Amara gritted her teeth. Jamin. Yes? If you keep repeating Grey's Anatomy quotes, I will throw something at you. Yes, ma'am. Switching to original content. You are, braver than Mulan, stronger than Wonder Woman, more graceful than... Shut up and rub my lower back. Yes, ma'am. Time slowed. The room was filled with low monitors and beeping machines, nurses in and out, and Jamin doing his very best not to hyperventilate. When Amara's water finally broke, he stood up so fast he hit his head on the overhead light. You okay? She asked between contractions. Totally. Just, calibrating my situational awareness. You're pale. Just my war face, Jamin confirmed. By the time the final push came, Jamin had both hands clenched around Amara's as if he were anchoring a tornado. When the sound of the baby's cry finally echoed through the room, Jamin's breath caught. He looked down at Amara. She was crying, laughing, exhausted, radiant. Then the nurse said, Would Dad like to cut the cord? And without thinking, Jamin said, Absolutely not. Wait. I mean, yes, I would. Hands shaking like jello in an earthquake, he took the scissors and snipped. A clean cut. The baby was crying. Amara was beaming. And Jamin fell into the chair beside the bed, eyes wide, hair net askew, whispering, I just saw a human emerge from another human. Amara chuckled, already reaching for her son. Welcome to the team, she said. You did great. He smiled, chest rising and falling, like a man who had just run a marathon and won something more than gold. Night watch. Jamin's first hold. The delivery room had quieted. The flurry of nurses had faded into a gentle hum beyond the door. Amara was asleep, finally, her head tilted toward the bassinet. An arm curled protectively around the space where her child had once pressed against her ribs. Jamin sat beside her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, watching the tiny sleeping bundle swaddled in soft hospital blue. The nurse returned with a warm smile and whispered, Want to hold him? He hesitated. Jamin looked at Amara, still asleep, then back to the baby. Are you sure I can? You were in the room, the nurse said gently. Your family now. She handed the baby over with the quiet expertise of someone who'd done it 1,000 times, and Jamin's arms instinctively made a cradle. The weight was impossibly light, like holding breath itself. The baby's nose scrunched, his mouth puckered in the tiniest frown, and Jamin's heart cracked wide open. Hey there, he whispered. He rocked gently, back and forth in the chair, instinct rather than thought guiding him. The baby made a sleepy gurgling sound and shifted, settling deeper into Jamin's chest like he already knew him. I didn't know it would feel like this, Jamin murmured. Like everything in me just paused to make room for you. He looked at the baby's perfect face, those tiny lashes, the soft bow of his upper lip. You don't know me yet, he whispered, but I've been here. Every appointment, every text in the middle of the night, every breath your mom took, hoping you'd be okay. I was hoping too. He blinked fast, brushing the back of his hand against his cheek, like something had just gotten in his eye. Maybe dust, maybe emotions. I'm not your dad, he said quietly, but I will protect you like I am. I will cheer for you, and I will show up. Every time. The baby yawned, a sound so small and soft it nearly undid him. Jamin let his chin rest on the edge of the blanket and just stared. Minutes passed like that. Quiet. Sacred. As if the universe was honoring something ancient and tender between them. A soft voice broke the silence. You look good like that. He looked up. Amara was watching him, sleep-heavy, but smiling. I think he knows you, she whispered. Jamin smiled back, slow and gentle. I think he already owns me. The naming. A quiet gift of legacy. The hospital room was filled with early morning light, the kind that painted everything in soft gold and made even beeping monitors feel less sterile. Amara was propped up in bed, a warm blanket tucked around her waist, her fingers absently tracing tiny circles along the back of the newborn sleeping in her lap. Jamin returned from the hallway, carrying 2 cups of coffee, one for her, one for him, though he was certain neither of them would finish more than a few sips. Their eyes met as he stepped inside, and she gave him a smile that made his heart stutter. She's already flirting with me, he teased, setting the cups down on the rolling table. Amara laughed, soft and tired. Get in line. He's got half the nurses wrapped around his little toes. Jamin walked over, brushing a gentle finger down the baby's cheek. What's not to love? A nurse knocked lightly and entered with a tablet in her hands. Sorry to interrupt. Just need the birth certificate info when you're ready. No pressure. Actually, Amara said, her voice calm but purposeful. I'm ready. Jamin looked at her, surprised. You are? I am. The nurse handed her the tablet and stylus, then gave them a polite moment of privacy. Jamin leaned over slightly, curious. Did we decide on a name? I thought you wanted to wait until we got home. Amara didn't answer right away. She tapped in the letters slowly, breathing through it, then turned the tablet around and held it out to Jamin. His eyes scanned the name. Dujuan Alexander Park. His breath caught. He blinked, and blinked again. Wait. Amara. His voice cracked like a boy trying to form a complete sentence through too many feelings. Are you serious? Amara nodded. He's your family too, and you've been here for every hard thing, every impossible thing. You've shown up. I couldn't imagine naming him without honoring both of you. Jamin's throat bobbed. His mouth parted, but no words came. Instead, he sank onto the edge of the bed, eyes glassy. Amara. He looked down at the baby. Thank you doesn't even. This means everything. She reached out, gently curling her fingers around his. He's got Dojuan's calm, and he'll grow up with your heart. You're not just in his life, Jamin. You're part of his name. He was quiet, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand, unashamed of the tears this time. You sure you want to give him a name this cool? He finally said, voice shaky but teasing. Dujuan Alexander Park. He's going to sound like a legend. Amara chuckled. He already is. The nurse returned, took the tablet, and smiled softly when she saw the name. Beautiful, she said. I'll file this and bring back a copy for your records. As the door shut again, Jamin leaned over, pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead, then one to Amara's temple. I will love both of you for the rest of my life, he whispered. And in the warm morning light, with love and loss tangled between them, the quiet magic of something new finally took hold. I hope you enjoyed the Love Lessons series finale. You were the girl. Some stories don't end. They just finally tell the truth. Before you go, here are a few questions for you. Question 1. Was Amara chosen because she was strong? Or did she become strong because she was chosen? Question 2. When grief turns violent, where does responsibility end, and where does compassion stop? Question 3. Is survival enough, or do we still owe meaning to what was lost? And question 4. Who carries love forward when the person who gave it is gone? Thanks for watching. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.